How's it going, everyone? Welcome back in for another episode of the Blow It Up podcast with Jake and Justin. I'm your host, Joey Mensa. The NBA is in full motion now as we head towards the postseason, and the Los Angeles Lakers had a very rough game a few nights ago against the Houston Rockets. It's raised much more questions about this team. So I'm going to ask Justin, what does he think is the number one problem with the Lakers right now, and do you have faith in them moving forward?
Okay, so there's actually a lot of problems with this Lakers team. When you look at them, they're just not built to win right now. Without Avery Bradley, they don't have the defensive guard help. We've seen JR and Dion Waiters aren't there defensively. The guards are just killing them like the Rockets. They're not there. They just go right past them and get easy buckets. It's just been terrible defense, and that's what's killing them. And then you got LeBron. LeBron's been terrible at the end of the fourth quarter. I don't know if it's rust or what, but the last 5 minutes of every fourth quarter, he's been brutal out there. Let's see what else. Anthony Davis has been bad. Last two games, he scored 9 and 17, I believe, were the last two totals in points he's had.
Yep.
So that's not very good. And in the fourth quarter, he has been probably one of the worst players on the Los Angeles Lakers. I know the one game, I believe it was the first game, he had 2 points, and the only 2 points were from the free throw line. It's not like he's clearly not showing up. I don't know who's going to be their closer down the stretch because LeBron hasn't been the closer yet. Anthony Davis clearly isn't a closer. He's proven that throughout his career so far. So they don't have the shooters. Their shots aren't falling. I mean, Danny Green's been terrible. They don't have the defense. They don't have the fourth quarter closer. So, I'm really worried about this team.
Well, as you know, I've been rooting hard for the Lakers this season. I was extremely happy with what I was seeing out of them pre-quarantine. I thought they were the best team in the NBA. But I can't just neglect the facts that we're seeing here in Orlando so far. They should have beat the Clippers by way more than 2 points in the first game. That was disappointing. And then they lost badly to the Raptors. They bounced back, and I think they beat – I forget who they beat.
The Jazz.
The Jazz. They bounced back in a nice win there, but then they lost the last two games, and they haven't been particularly close really in either of those games either. Obviously, LeBron didn't play against the Houston Rockets, but what troubles me the most –
Westbrook that game.
Yeah, and they didn't have Westbrook, so it should have been closer than what it was. It was never in contention all game. It was always 15, 20-point Rocket lead the whole game. The problem with this Lakers team right now is the outside shooting has disappeared. And like you said, Avery Bradley was their knockdown guy. He was shooting over 40% from three this season, and he was their best defender. And they lose him. We knew that was going to be a big piece missing. And that's why they signed guys like J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters to shoot the three ball, but they're both not shooting the three ball very well so far. So, and Danny Green's been awful. I mean, the back,
so bad.
You've been seeing all over Instagram, obviously the back of his jersey is how many more, that's his social justice message, but if people have been making fun of it, how many more threes are you going to miss? He's gone I think he's shooting 15% from three in the bubble, which is atrocious. He's better than that. I know he'll be better than that. So that's why I'm concerned because, first of all, it looks like all these guys are really rusty, and I thought the Lakers were going to be the team that would come into the bubble red hot because they're more of a veteran-led team, and I thought the rest would really help them. But it seems that maybe throughout this break, maybe not all the players were all in on having the season back because everybody looks rusty for the Lakers. Even LeBron. LeBron hasn't had a single good game yet. He has not had a single good game yet. He has not had a LeBron James game yet. I think he's shooting 35% in the bubble so far. It's ridiculous.
The Lakers are minus 33 with him on the court.
Yeah,
it may have changed after the last game, but up until their previous game, they were minus 33 with him on the court.
And that's crazy because
good.
LeBron James, before this break, was plus 11 when he was on the floor with the Lakers each game, which is really good. That was one of the best in the NBA, and all of a sudden, just things have changed here. But I'm not jumping off ship yet. I still think the Lakers are going to win the title this season, but I'm definitely more concerned now. And obviously, the question is the number one problem. It's got to be the outside shooting. Guys, Danny Green cannot go 0 for 8 in a playoff game against the Clippers. He can't do that. If he does that, the Lakers are going to be dead. They're going to be toast. They can't shoot I think they've shot 5 of 30-something from three the last two games, or maybe it's even worse than that. And it's insanely bad. So I don't think it's going to necessarily keep up. I think they're going to shoot the ball a little bit better. Maybe this is some sort of rest tactic where they're kind of just sleepwalking into the playoffs, but I don't think that's a good idea given this bubble. Because you're going to have to really ramp up from 0 to 100. It's not like the regular season where, you can take off the last 5 to 10 games and be fine. This is like the start of a new season, basically. You want to be at your best by the end of this bubble. And right now the Lakers, arguably, actually, it's funny. You could say the Lakers have probably been the worst team in the bubble so far if you look at some of the statistics, which is shocking. But, yeah, I'm concerned. The Lakers have to fix their shooting. Guys got to hit shots. I know LeBron's going to play better. Anthony Davis is not a fourth-quarter player. We know this. Anthony Davis is Mr. Third Quarter. He always has –
That's
it
why
seems like he always has –
he plays 12 minutes in the third quarter.
Yeah, he always has these huge games through three quarters where he's got 30-plus points, and then he doesn't, score the rest of the game. It's it's so weird. I don't know what's up with him with that. It's so strange. And, it's funny because I think so far he's the only guy other than Michael Jordan to average over 30 points per game in the playoffs, but he hasn't really done anything in the playoffs. He's made it – I think he's won one playoff series in his career.
Yep.
So this year is going to be interesting because he's likely going to win more than one with this Lakers team, but he's going to have to come in clutch if they're going to do anything special. So – I'm concerned. I think the Lakers are going to be okay, but it's definitely concerning. And if it doesn't fix, then I don't know what's going to happen. I think the Lakers could be bounced early if they keep shooting the ball like this because it's atrocious.
Well, when you watch the Lakers, the two teams they really struggled against were the TRAILBLAZERs and the Rockets. And I've said they don't have the defensive guards, so they don't have the guards to be able to defend a team like the Rockets with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. You played the Raptors, a team that has a bunch of guards with Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry. They weren't able to defend them. That's where they're going to struggle the most. They can shut down the big men, but they can't shut down those guards, and that's where they're going to struggle. So I think first-round matchup right now would be I'm projecting the TRAILBLAZERs to win today, but I think I'd play the TRAILBLAZERs. TRAILBLAZERs would probably be the 8 seeds. They'd have to play a guard-heavy team there. And then second round is the 4 seeds, the Rockets. So assuming the Rockets win in the first round over, I believe it's the Jazz right now, the 5th seed, they'd be playing the Rockets in the second round. And then they'd have to play the Clippers. That's probably one of the hardest paths to the finals that any team would have this season. So I'd be worried.
It's so unfortunate. And we're going to talk about the TRAILBLAZERs a little bit later on in this show. But the Lakers, honestly, heading in, it looked like they were going to play the Grizzlies. And let's be honest, I love Ja Morant. I think he's going to be great, but there's no chance that team has any shot whatsoever against the Lakers, especially now with losing Jaren Jackson. But I don't think I think they're going to get bounced in that play-in game by the TRAILBLAZERs, who are now locked and loaded and are basically the same team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year.
If the TRAILBLAZERs win today, they are the 8th seed now. They passed the Grizzlies.
Is there? So. I thought there was still a play-in game, and if it was within.
Yeah, but they'd have the advantage. So the 9th seed has to win 2 games. The 8th seed only has to win 1. So the 8th seed is valuable because I think if the TRAILBLAZERs got the 8th seed, that would make it a whole lot easier. I don't even think it would be close. They'd be guaranteed to win that game, honestly.
I'll be honest. Even if they're 9th seed, I think they would win 2 games. I think they would crush the Grizzlies.
I think so too, but I mean, they certainly have a much better chance if they're the 8th seed.
Definitely.
Yeah. So hopefully Lakers return back to pre-bubble form. They've been struggling a little bit lately. I want to get into I want to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit. As we know, Sixers star Ben Simmons is out indefinitely with a partially dislocated kneecap. So I'm going to ask you, Jake, what do you think this does for the Sixers moving forward and their chances to win a title?
Well, first of all, as of this moment, we aren't really sure how long Ben is going to miss. But to be honest, I'm not thinking it's going to be positive. I think it's going to be bad. And even if he's able to come back, he's going to be playing hampered for probably at least a couple weeks, I would think. I think at worst it's 6 to 8 week injury, right? That's what they were saying.
It depends because there was no other damage other than the kneecap slid in and out of place. So they're saying it could be maybe 2 to 3 weeks, but the max is 6 weeks, they said. So probably 4 to 6.
And honestly, looking at what the Sixers have been in this bubble so far, it's shocking that we're 3-1. It feels like we're 0-4 because every game's a battle. We're playing. I mean, we're barely beating these bad teams. I mean, it looked like we were going to lose to the Magic a lot, almost the whole night yesterday. We came back and won. And to be honest, I have no expectations for my Sixers in these playoffs. I think we're losing in the first round with Ben Simmons or without him. I don't like this team. I've been saying this for probably since I guess I started to self-realize this around February and March that this team is just not constructed to win. You have guys like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid who are dominants in the paint, who score all their points in the paint, but you have no outside shooters to complement them. The Sixers the last 2 years made it into the second round deep because they had really good shooters outside. They had J.J. Redick, Marco Bellinelli, Landry Shamet, guys like that who were really good shooters outside who could hit shots for you. There's nobody on the Sixers team. This is the same thing that the Lakers have right now, except the Lakers actually have guys who can hit threes. They just aren't hitting them. the Sixers literally have nobody. I mean, our best 3-point shooter is Furkan Korkmaz, and he's
You watch Alec
so
Burks
up in.
last night, though?
Alec Burks
He was
was
on.
great last night.
If
He was great
you get
last
that
night.
Alec Burks, you have a good chance of winning a basketball game because he dropped 26 points or whatever. He was what?
Yeah, well, he had like 18, 20 some points off the bench. It was crazy. He looked like the Golden State Alec Burks that I thought we were getting, who has been really bad. And we also traded for Glenn Robinson. I think Glenn Robinson's still hurt, but
he's hurt. Yep.
I like him off the bench too, but he's not much of a 3-point shooter. But I did like that trade when we first made it. But as I'm saying, unless we get somebody to really go off in these playoffs, we're not going to beat anybody. And the fact of the matter is, if I'm taking the worst case scenario without Ben, it's not even going to be close. If we have Ben, we can give teams some trouble. But we were struggling against the Magic last night. And that just kind of shows you this team is not winning a title this year. I really hope that after this season we make some pretty big changes, whether it's a head coach, whether it's the GM. But we got to change this team around. We got to get shooters around Ben and Joel. If you want to build around those two, there's a lot of people talking about, and I don't really necessarily agree with this because I think you got two great young players. I think you hold on to them. But some people are saying maybe trade either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, and you try and build around what you can get from them. I'm not a huge fan of that because I think these two guys can work together if you can get them some outside shooters. But, we'll see. I think if there's a guy you trade, it might be Tobias Harris, although I don't think a lot of teams are going to like his contract. He's a great scorer, but he's not much defensively, and he's actually a below-average 3-point shooter. So he's not the most important player on this team. I wanted Jimmy Butler. I think we all wanted Jimmy Butler over Tobias Harris last summer. But obviously he wanted to go to South Beach. And, look at – now I've got the Heat going all the way to the finals. So I just love Jimmy Butler. I think that Heat team's great. I think the Sixers would be in the finals if we had Jimmy Butler instead of Tobias Harris, but that's a conversation for another day. But in terms of the Sixers title chances, even before this, I would say it was almost zero. And if Ben Simmons is obviously out, and this would be worst case scenario, if he's out, deep and misses the first round of the playoffs, we're done. It's zero, negligible odds to win any playoff series, any title this season. So, that's just how I feel about it.
See, I disagree with that just because now that we don't have him, we're going to lose some of these regular season games. And by losing them, we guarantee ourselves the 6th seed. When we have the 6th seed, Al Horford and Joel Embiid will dominate the Celtics. And even without Ben Simmons, I think we definitely still have a chance of winning that first round matchup. And then if we get Ben Simmons back for the second round, then we have a chance to beat the Raptors. And if Ben Simmons isn't there, though, and let's say the Sixers lose in the first round, let's say they get swept or something like that, the biggest thing is that just gives the Sixers an excuse not to make any changes this offseason. They won't fire the GM. They won't fire the head coach because they're going to look at it and say, oh, well, we didn't have Ben Simmons. We'll give it another shot next year with the same exact roster. And that's exactly what you do not want to do. You're going to have to make changes to this team. We already know that. But now that Ben Simmons is hurt, it may give the front office an excuse. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I don't know whether it's good or bad because I think it's kind of a little bit of a blessing that we kind of are going to lose some of these games, I think, up here because this is our toughest stretch. We got to play the TRAILBLAZERS, Rockets, Raptors, and the Suns. So those aren't any guaranteed wins with Ben Simmons. So without him, I think we're going to struggle. So I think we lose some of those games. It will lock us into the 6th seed, which I think will help us out because we get to play Boston first round. And I think we have a chance of beating the Celtics, even without Ben Simmons, just because who's going to guard Embiid? Embiid's going to be going off for 45 and 20 each night. Shake Milton's been solid so far. If you can get Alec Burks, Glenn Robinson, Thibault playing defense on one of these guys, I think they have a chance to at least make it a good series and push it long enough to say Ben Simmons could come back and return from the series. I don't know. We'd have to see. I have to wait and see how long Ben Simmons is going to be out. But, I mean, who knows? It's tough to tell. I don't like their chances with the 6th seed without their second best player. But, yes, I'm not liking their chances right now. But there's still a slim chance. I'd give them a little bit of a chance to make a finals run. Now, you had mentioned trading one of those two players.
Yeah.
You do not want to trade one of those two. If anything, you want to trade – my ideal trade would be Josh Richardson and Al Horford. Combine those two with a draft pick and see what you can get because I think Tobias has actually become a very key player to this team. He's been playing great this whole bubble, and you say he's a below-average three-point shooter, but throughout his career, he's a 38% three-point shooter. So I'm not sure why he's below average. This season, he still shooting above 35% this season, which is solid. And in the bubble, he's been shooting the ball really well. So he's not really below average three-point shooter. I'm not sure where you get that from. But if anything, Josh Richardson's the below average 3-point shooter because he has been
Richardson's
awful
been
from
really
three.
disappointing.
The problem with Richardson is he does everything in the mid-range, and the mid-range area is so clogged up with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons out in the court. There's no room for him to work there. So the spacing is just off. If anything, you got to trade Al Horford and JJ or Josh Richardson for Buddy Hield. That's my proposal out there, that they could do that, or try and package somehow something without giving up Embiid and Simmons to get Devin Booker. I would be on board with that. If you could give up Thibault, Richardson, Tobias, a first this year from the Thunder, a couple seconds and another first, I would do that for sure.
Oh, yeah. That'd be, obviously those are dream trades.
Mm-hmm.
You got me salivating over here thinking about Devin Booker on the 76ers. Oh my God. I mean, that would be very great. That'd be awesome. But yeah, I mean, I mean, when we got Richardson in the summer of last year in that sign and trade, I was kind of excited about him, but the Heat were also not as good last year, so he had a lot more opportunity. And this year, he's a great defensive player. He's a good defensive wing, but as a 3-point shooter, he's really regressed this season. I don't know why, but last night especially, he was missing every 3-pointer that he took. So we need a guy like a Buddy Hield, somebody who can knock down some key shots down the stretch and at least force some people to at least step outside of the paint, because they're just clogging the paint right now on us, and it's impossible for us to score.
You need Josh Richardson's a very good player. He doesn't do anything terrible, and he doesn't do anything great. So he just is kind of good at everything. Yeah. And the Sixers don't need that, because that's something that, Ben Simmons is a guy that's good at kind of everything. He can do everything. So they already have a guy like that. They don't need that. They need a guy that's just a straight-up sharpshooter. Tobias Harris, another guy. He can dribble. He can pass. He can shoot. He can kind of do it all just okay. He's not, spectacular or anything, but he's not terrible at anything. So you have those guys. You need a specialist that can kind of spread the floor at shooting guard, and Jay Rich just doesn't fit that role.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I don't like the chances of our Sixers right now. They've been pretty frustrating to watch in the bubble. I feel like they should be blowing teams like this out, just crushing them, but it's just been so close. So sticking with the NBA, I want to talk about the Phoenix Suns a little bit. They've been 4-0 to begin, and they're looking to go 5-0 today against the Miami Heat. And this has been largely thanks to Devin Booker, extremely talented offensive player. So Justin, do you think that Devin Booker should stay on the Suns or go to another team moving forward in his career?
So I've been a big advocate for Devin Booker staying where he is, because I think that Suns team is very good. They're very young, and I really like their coach out there. I think he's good at developing the talent, and if you just give him the time, he's a former Sixers coach. So I respect him. Yes, I like him a lot. I think if you give him time to grow these players, I think they will be a very good team. We've seen it already from the time they've returned from the bubble. 4-0, probably going to go 5-0 against Miami, or win today against Miami to make them 5-0, because they're without Jimmy Butler and I believe Kendrick Nunn as well. So they're going to be a contender next year for sure. They'll have Mikal Bridges, who's been playing well. DeAndre Ayton shooting the 3-pointer now. He's developed that jump shot, which is nice. You got Devin Booker going off. I think they're a real contender, and I don't think they need to trade him, because I think if they just give it another year, they will be a very good team in the West next year. Now, the West is going to be very good next year, because you get the Warriors are going to be coming back. The Clippers will have played hopefully more games than 12 with their full starting roster. The Pelicans will be healthy with a full Zion. So these teams will be better. The Trailblazers will have Nurkic the whole year. So the Western Conference is going to be stacked next year. So I don't think we'll see the same results. So I'm not sure the Suns will be able to be a elite contender, like a top 5 team, but they'll certainly be a playoff team next year, in my opinion, if they keep Booker.
I agree with you on one part of that statement. I think that the Phoenix Suns are a rising young team that's going to be a good playoff team for years to come. But as long as he's in Phoenix, he's never going to have a shot at a championship, in my opinion. First of all, no one really signs with Phoenix. How are they going to bring in a superstar? I love DeAndre Ayton, but I feel like he's kind of a player who would work in the old NBA, because he's more of a traditional big. He can kind of shoot the jump shot a little bit, but I'm not sure he's really that guy. Yeah, I'm not sure he's really that guy yet that's going to push him over the top as their so-called number 2 behind Devin Booker. I'd love to see Devin Booker in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. I would love to see Devin Booker with the Los Angeles Lakers. First of all,
what are they giving up for him?
Probably Kuzma, probably a couple picks, and probably some of their young guys like Talon Horton, Tucker, or whatever. And
That's
then
going
you
to get you
got
Devin Booker.
maybe, I don't
You better
know.
be giving up 6 first-round picks with that. Kyle Kuzma's a scrub. You
All
think you're
right,
going to get
he's
Kyle
not a
Kuzma
scrub. He's
and
a
a
solid
couple other role
scorer.
players for one of the best scorers in basketball right now?
It's going to take a lot of picks, but I think you give up. You can somehow create, and who cares what? You give me the three core of LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Devin Booker. That team's winning 3 or 4 championships. And then when LeBron retires, you got possibly the best duo in the NBA with Devin Booker and Anthony Davis. So the Los Angeles Lakers would be set for 10 to 15 years. I mean, that would be amazing for the Lakers. I think they can pull it off. It's just a matter of getting all the pieces there.
There's no way they can pull it off.
Honestly,
You're right. It would be a good fit because LeBron can't close out games. That's one of his biggest weaknesses. Unlike Jordan, he can't close out the basketball game. And Anthony Davis can't close out a basketball game, so they need that closer. So they need a Devin Booker. I agree with you on
I
that.
love Devin
But
Booker. I think
there's no way for them to possibly make that move. There's just no way. That there's too much salary on that team. His contract won't fit. There's no way that's possible on the assets. There's just so much wrong with that. There's no way it can happen. But I agree with you. It would be a good fit.
I think there is a way it could happen. I'm not sure how, but I think that there's a way that the Lakers could pull off this trade. It's probably going to be one of those 3-team, 4-team trades where guys are going all over the place, you know. I remember back when Dwight Howard was traded to the Lakers, the Sixers were involved as that kind of third team facilitating the trade. That's probably what would have to happen. Maybe there's a third team who's really high on Kyle Kuzma or Talon Horton Tucker and those draft picks that the Lakers have. They take some of their pieces. They maybe give the Suns another star player in return, and the Lakers can get Devin Booker. And I think it can happen. And I think I would love to see him in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform in a big market with LeBron James, with Anthony Davis. He needs to get the hell out of Phoenix. I mean, I'm sorry. They're not going anywhere. I think they could be a good playoff team, maybe a team who takes a team in the first round as a 7 or 8 seed, but the Phoenix Suns, they're not recruiting anybody. Nobody's coming to Phoenix to play. People are going to LA. People are going to Miami. I'd like to see Devin Booker in a large market. If it's not the Lakers, I'd like to see him on a big market, maybe our Sixers, maybe the Heat.
I was gonna say the Sixers are a much better fit because you got a LeBron James type player in Ben Simmons. You got the dominant big man like Joel Embiid. They have more cap space. If you get rid of Al Horford's contract, Devin Booker's contract fits right in.
Probably
and then
have to give up Harris too.
You'd have to. Well, I'm not saying you'd have to trade Al Horford to somebody else, obviously, because the Suns don't need a center because they have Ayton. But if you trade Al Horford for, say, a late first-round pick or whatever, you trade that pick, your first-rounder this year, first-rounder next year, Jay Rich and Tobias Harris, that's a much better package than anything the Lakers would give them. You can throw in Thibault. He's a much better player. That would be a much better package than anything the Lakers could match. I think the Sixers are a much better fit than the Lakers in that situation.
Maybe trade-wise, but I think piece-wise, Devin Booker as in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform, oh, Lord. That would be something to watch. I mean, that would be 10 years of Lakers domination. I mean, that would be like the 80s Lakers where they just were constantly in the finals run. Even without LeBron James, they'd be right there every season. I mean, that'd be awesome.
The Lakers, I'm telling you, the Lakers and Sixers are much similar teams than most people realize, except the Lakers were built correctly. The Lakers were built with shooters. LeBron James and Ben Simmons, 2 tall point guards. Games are similar, great passers, not great shooters. At least LeBron will take the jump shot, but he's not a great shooter. Ben is not a good shooter at all. He won't even shoot it. And then you got 2 of the best big men in basketball playing down low there. So I think they're 2 similar built teams, but the Lakers have shooters and the Sixers don't. And that's why the Lakers had success throughout the year and the Sixers didn't. That's the biggest difference there. And I think if you could get Devin Booker on the Sixers, you'd have the same exact results because I don't think a big man is not going to be your closer. Down the stretch, you're not going to be able to feed it into the big guy every time. That's not just going to work. You need a guy that can bring up the ball and kind of close out games. Jimmy Butler did it for us last year, and I think Devin Booker is actually a better scorer than Jimmy Butler is. So I think Booker would slide into that role perfectly there. And if you get Ben Simmons kind of spreading the floor at the end of the game, Devin Booker with the ball, Joel Embiid down low, I think that'd be arguably one of the best big threes in basketball.
Well, yeah, obviously. And that's assuming that the Suns would accept that trade without Simmons or being involved. I agree with that in a sense. I think Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid have some similarities. I think Anthony Davis is a better player right now. I think I would want him on my team over Joel Embiid as much as I love Embiid. Anthony Davis is a little bit better. But yeah, it's a fair comparison. Ben Simmons obviously doesn't shoot the shot, so he's not really LeBron James yet. But if he starts
They're
shooting it,
the
he
same
would
type
actually
player, though.
he would be basically the same player as LeBron if he even just attempted the shot. I mean, LeBron is like a 32% 3-point shooter. He's nothing special, but he shoots it. So
I mean,
that's
LeBron
all
and
Ben
Ben's
Simmons
stats
is
have
there.
been very similar so far in the bubble here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be really something special to watch if that could ever happen. This is a pretty good transition, though, to our last NBA discussion for the day. We're going to circle back to the Los Angeles Lakers. So it's looking like that the TRAILBLAZERS are closing in on that AC. They've been red hot during the bubble, and it looks like they're going to be back in the playoffs. So, Jake, do you think if the TRAILBLAZERS play the Lakers, that they could knock off the Lakers in that matchup?
No, not even a chance. I know we talked about earlier in the show about our concerns for the Lakers, and yes, there's concerns for the Lakers, but I think this Portland Trailblazers team is a little bit. Here's the thing: they are the team that they were last year with the addition of Carmelo Anthony, but they still are not a really good defensive team. They've been playing a lot of high-scoring games this season, and the Lakers, even without Avery Bradley, are still a pretty solid defensive team. And if the Lakers just hit their 3-point shots, they're going to win this series in 5 games. 5 games, easy. I think the Trailblazers can take 1 game, maybe 2 if they're lucky, but because we don't know what's going to happen with this bubble, it's such a weird scenario where there's no home court advantage for anybody. But I don't care where we're playing. The Lakers are not losing a 7-game series with the Portland Trailblazers. The more teams that I'm worried about down the line, in terms of my concerns for the Lakers, are more the Clippers and even the Rockets to a little bit of an extent right now. Not the Portland Trailblazers. As much as it's been fun to watch Carmelo Anthony really resurgence and have them come back, every game they've been playing in the bubble and won has been seemingly been very close. They're not really dominating teams. Nurkic is still working his way back in it. He's gonna have a hell of a matchup coming 8 games in, have to play Anthony Davis, in a 7-game series. I mean, best of luck to you because that's gonna be a domination from Anthony Davis.
You won't have to do anything in the fourth quarter.
Well, I don't even know. Right now,
you have the Anthony Davis stopper on your bench there with Hassan Whiteside. He leads the NBA in blocks. He's one of the best defensive centers in basketball. He's not going to get you.
I think he's a little too slow to guard Anthony Davis. I think Nurkic at 100% and after getting some basketball conditioning could guard Anthony Davis. But Hassan Whiteside's a little slow. Anthony Davis is a little bit too much of a guard big, I think, for Whiteside. Maybe in the paint. He'll block some shots.
In the paint, he would shut him down. But the problem will be, you're right, if he stretches him on the outside. But he wouldn't get anything on the inside on him because Hassan would be too big for him down there.
But there's no way the Trailblazers are going to have any chance in this series. They're red hot now. They're winning games. Congratulations to them. They're probably going to get the 8th seed because the Grizzlies lost in my opinion, probably their second best player in Jaren Jackson. And yeah, so they're probably going to get the 8th seed, play the Lakers. But, they'll have a nice 5 games. They'll get some playoff experience for their guys, but they'll lose in 5 games, and there won't be much to say about it. I'm not concerned about the Lakers getting out of the first round. I'm more concerned about the Lakers in the later rounds right now. So the Portland Trailblazers pose no threat for the Lakers.
I disagree with that. I think the Trailblazers are probably the second, maybe third biggest threat out there. I think the Clippers are a threat, but I don't know if they're going to have all their guys, so I'm not so sure on that. But assuming the Rockets keep playing like they are and the Trailblazers are playing like they are, I think they're the 2 biggest threats to the Lakers, just based on the fact that the Lakers cannot guard the opposing team's guards. They struggle on that. And so far, the Lakers are last out of the 30 teams in shooting percentage, 41.2%, last in 3-point shooting, 21.3%, 21st in assists at 18.8 assists, and 18th in turnovers. And that's not out of the 30 teams in the NBA. That's out of the 22 that are in the bubble. So those aren't good numbers at all. And Anthony Davis is either playing lights out or very bad. Like, he was so bad that he was getting dominated by some no-name bench centers out there at times. So much for defensive player of the year, because he's been struggling on the defense and he's not giving any effort. So I'm certainly not sold on the Lakers. And I think the Trailblazers could make this upset because I think the Lakers are kind of rested and they're not really taking this seriously right now. And the Trailblazers are coming.
I completely agree with that.
They're not taking this seriously right now, and it's obvious that they're not taking it seriously, and the Trailblazers are taking it very seriously. They're playing basically for their lives right now, and they're coming out and balling. I mean, have you seen Gary Trent Jr.? That guy can't miss from 3.
Great. He's been fantastic. He's shooting like 50+% from 3 already.
Yeah, he doesn't miss.
He's coming out of nowhere.
Melo's hitting his shot. Dame, CJ. That's going to cause a lot of havoc for the Lakers if they're still hitting their shots like they are now. and the Lakers can't hit their shots, that the Trailblazers may win that series in 6 games, honestly. They may not even push it 7. They may win it in 6 with the way the Lakers are playing.
Okay.
I'd be very worried just based on if trends continue, the Lakers play like they are right now, and the Trailblazers play like they are right now. I think the Trailblazers win that series in 6 games.
If I'm wrong and the Lakers are not, resting these games and this is just what they are, I could see that because the Lakers have been dreadful to watch really most of this bubble. But I'm telling you right now, this is what LeBron does. He always hits the brakes like right before the playoffs, and it's happened every year it seems, especially with the Cavs. The last like 5-10 games of the season, everybody's like, oh my God, the Cavs might get bounced in the first round, and it's like this is LeBron James we're talking about. We got playoff Bron coming up here. I think he's going to be much better. I mean, I almost think it won't matter even if the Lakers don't shoot well from 3 because I think LeBron James is going to play way better than what he's been playing. LeBron's been awful so far in the bubble. I don't think he has a groin injury. I think that was a bunch of BS. I think that was more.
Oh, it certainly was.
That was a bunch of like the Kawhi stuff, which I actually like for LeBron. I think he should be resting, and load management isn't the best thing in my opinion.
It's a good thing. Very good thing. It's good. It's good for the players, not good for the league, though.
Bad for the league, yeah, and bad for the fans. Because it was we got Rockets Lakers. It was primetime game earlier this week. LeBron didn't play, and that was kind of disappointing. But it is what it is, and we're getting ready for the playoffs here now. So a lot of these games don't matter for the Lakers. It's like some like almost like you're playing games, but like, what's the point of going so hard on them? They're not going to catch the Bucks for the 1 seed. Not that it even matters with home court anymore. If this was maybe back, in March, these games would matter because they'd be trying to grab that number 1 overall seed. But now it doesn't. So there's really no point for the Lakers to try and win these games, like at least kill themselves to win these games. So they're putting out the back of the bench. I mean, Taylor Horton Tucker, for Christ's sake, Jared Dudley played like 15 minutes. I mean, I think I could get more valuable minutes right now than Jared Dudley. He looks awful out there. He looks out of shape. He's terrible. He's their worst player. He's one of the worst players in the league, actually, and he's out there playing 15 minutes against the Rockets. I was like, what's going on? This guy doesn't play at all for the Lakers. Now that it's that rookie guy they have, and they were playing him a bunch of minutes. So you can tell the Lakers don't care about these games. They're trying to keep their guys healthy. What's saddened me the most is J.R. Smith has really been nothing for the Lakers. He's been actually really bad.
Like I said.
So you were right about that so far. Maybe he'll flip a switch, playoff J.R. Smith, finals J.R. Smith. Maybe that'll happen. But it's not going to matter. I don't think the Trailblazers are a threat unless these trends continue, obviously, but I don't think they're going to. I think the Lakers are just chilling right now.
They're fine chilling, but I mean, they got to be ready for these games because as soon as they're over, they got to flip the switch, and they got to flip a big switch because they're playing awful. They're arguably the worst team in the bubble right now. At least if you're looking at the performances that you've seen from every team, they've been probably the worst team in the bubble. So when you're taking that into fact, and they're resting these games, when are they going to get the chance to prove that they can actually contend? Like, the Trailblazers are going to have a lot of confidence coming into those games. They know the Lakers are beatable, and they know the Lakers are down on themselves. So if they come out there with a dominating win game 1, the Trailblazers are going to have all the confidence in the world, and they may even win that series in 5 then at that point.
Okay, no. I think if the Blazers win this series, it'll be in 7 games or 6, at the best. And that's if literally, I'm telling you, the only way the Trailblazers win the series is if Dame time is Dame time, and he's scoring like 40-plus points
he always
in
is.
This series.
He's
been a great playoff performer. He's been a great playoff performer.
Up.
And the game that I think if I was picking the Blazers, the game I would look at the most was, I think it was like February, and the Lakers played the Trailblazers at home, and Dame had like 56 points, and they won. That's the type of games they're going to need out of Dame if you're getting playoff LeBron.
Well, you also didn't have Nurkic back then. You didn't have Gary Trent Jr. shooting like he is now. Melo isn't playing like he is now. Throw all the stuff before the bubble away. That doesn't matter. All that matters is in the bubble.
You're right. I just think it's going to take a perfect storm for the Blazers to win this series. I just don't see it. But maybe. I mean, it's definitely not out of contention the way the Lakers have been playing, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a very anticipated matchup that we're all looking forward to, despite how the Lakers have been playing in the bubble. I want to get into the NFL. So there have been many circulating rumors around Antonio Brown and where he might possibly end up, with the Seattle Seahawks looking like the most likely landing spot. So, Justin, I'm curious, how would adding Antonio Brown fare with the Seahawks' chances to win the Super Bowl?
I don't really think it makes a difference because I think they're the best team. Maybe not the best. They're a top 2 team in the NFC already without him. So I think adding him would just like be icing on the cake. They're already good enough. Adding Jamal Adams was even better because I think they were a top 3 team with the Bucs and Saints in the NFC. And now that you added Jamal Adams, I think that puts them right up at the top there with the Saints. And adding Antonio Brown, that would easily put them on the top. They'd have the best wide receiver core in football: DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Antonio Brown. That'd be so good. And you have good running backs. Russell Wilson, top 2 quarterback. You have a good defense, good corners. None of their defense is really spectacular. They lost Clowney, but they're all very good. None of them are great other than Jamal Adams. Now we'll see how he fares. But that defense is kind of a team defense. It's never like one person stands out and falls out. They kind of all share the spotlight. We saw with the Legion of Boom, they had all those guys there. So if Jamal Adams fits into that well, I think they're probably the team to beat in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm right with you here. I'll even take it a step further. I think if they get Antonio Brown, who I still think when he comes back, because even if you just put him in the NFL right now, I think he's automatically still a top 5 wide receiver, and maybe even better than that. We'll see.
Oh, I agree.
I think that one game with Tom Brady.
He has an 8-game suspension, right? 8 games.
8 games, yeah.
Does that count if he's a free agent, or does the
No, it
suspension
does,
start
yeah.
when he signs?
If he's a free agent, it's the first 8 weeks, so it's the same thing.
Did he unretire yet, or is he still retired?
It's AB. He's never retired. He's just saying that. He's retired like 4 or 5 times. Look, I know he's a head case. I mean, I'm a Steelers fan. I've dealt with AB for year after year, but the one thing that he does is he performs. When he's out in the field, he performs. Obviously, I think a guy like Russell Wilson is a perfect quarterback for him because Russell Wilson has been kind of known around the league as like one of the ultimate teammate guys, kind of like the Tom Brady guy. Like Russell Wilson, you don't hear about Russell Wilson arguing with players. You don't hear about him getting into fights with his teammates. You know, Big Ben, I love Big Ben, but he's been a guy who often criticizes his teammates. So it was just never a really good fit there. And I think with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, that wouldn't be the best fit because, and Justin, you've talked about this a lot before, and now I'm kind of behind it. Lamar likes to kind of switch it up, and it's not a really pass-heavy offense, and AB is going to be like, I'm open. That's what AB would do in Pittsburgh. He's like, I'm open every play. And, you know, that's going to really piss off Lamar. Whereas the Seahawks, I think if they get AB, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. One of the best, I think he's the second best passer in the league by far. I don't think it's close. I think you got Mahomes is the best, and then I think right there below him is Russell Wilson as a passer.
I agree.
So I think he'd do great in that offense, and I really think their defense is really, really good. It's underrated. They got Jamal Adams. I think they're a piece away on defense. I think they should sign Everson Griffin or maybe Jadeveon Clowney. Re-sign him. And that if at that point, I really like that defense. I think that obviously they're not the Legion of Boom defense anymore, but with just like adding Jamal Adams and maybe you bring back Clowney, that defense is now all of a sudden, you know, at least in the top half of the league, not where it was last year where it kind of struggled. You know, I think the addition of Jamal Adams was just such a huge, huge deal for them because he can do 2 things. He can guard out wide, and he can come and sack the quarterback. He's one of the best safeties at sacking the quarterback, so he's kind of dual threat. And I think you add AB, like saying, it's icing the cake. I even go a step further. I think they're the best team in the league if they get AB. I just think on the offensive side and the defensive side, they're so well-rounded. I think they win the Super Bowl if they get AB. That's how
I'd say
I honestly
they're up there, but I think that's a little too far. I don't think they're necessarily guaranteed Super Bowl because we gotta see how this whole thing plays out.
Or sorry, I should have phrased it. I think they'll go to the Super Bowl because I still have.
You think they? Yeah, I was gonna say the Chiefs are still up there. It'd be good. But you said that like Russell Wilson would be the type of guy that could lead him in the locker room. I don't know about that. Just based off of there's been a lot of locker room issues in Seattle. Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. You just added Jamal Adams, who he was actually one of the locker room cancers in New York, apparently. Now that he's out of there, there's been a lot of teammates like Le'Veon Bell speaking out and saying how bad of a teammate he was. So you add him, AB. I don't know. That was a good locker room because they kind of went away from it. They got rid of Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas because they knew they were all kind of head cases and locker room cancers. So they went away from that. So I'm not sure if they necessarily want to bring – they already brought Jamal Adams in to test that out. I don't know if they want to necessarily bring in AB as well until they get the Jamal Adams thing situated because they got to re-sign him to a contract because he certainly wants to be paid more money.
Well, and I think what you're going to see, because like I said, that suspension works if he's a free agent or not. So maybe Seattle sees what it's like the first 5-6 weeks of the season with Jamal and this offense, and if they feel we need another piece, they throw in AB, and I think that's the only location where he can really go right now. I don't think
Disagree. I like Green Bay.
I would love him with Aaron Rodgers. I really would. I just don't think it's going to happen because I think Green Bay is just
San Francisco.
I feel like Green Bay is kind of throwing this season, which honestly, I mean, if you look at the draft, it sort of looks like they maybe are. But, if they sign AB, that would just be – it would be so weird. Why would you have this draft where you're basically building for the future and then sign AB?
It'd make perfect sense. Now they got all their backups, and why use your draft pick on your future and sign the guy you want now? It would actually make perfect sense. Now they're contenders, and they use the draft pick for the future. So they get their wide receiver they needed, and they were able to build for the future at the same time. It would make perfect sense, actually.
I think AB on that Packers team would make Aaron Rodgers the MVP of the league again. But in terms of my expected landing spot, I haven't really heard a lot of noise around the Packers, whereas literally Pete Carroll's been bringing up AB in press conferences. That's that's the only thing I'm saying here. I just think Seattle's probably where he'll go. I think that they're looking into it. I really feel the only two teams that really brought up AB have been the Ravens and the Seahawks, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, you're right. Those are the things that brought up. But, I mean, there's a lot of good fits out there. You get San Francisco is a good fit because they lost Deebo Samuel. They lost Emmanuel Sanders. Him out there, he's an automatic double team, so it would free up the middle of the field for Kelsey or Kittle and their running back. So that'd be a good fit for San Francisco. And I think New England definitely needs some wide receiver help.
AB's not going to like playing with Jimmy G, though. AB's going to get mad at Jimmy G.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But, I mean, it's a good fit there. They clearly have a decent locker room if they were able to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know how well he'd fit in there. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a good guy, too. So I think he'd be able to control the locker room. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Antonio Brown went to Seattle, they'd definitely be contenders to come out of the NFC. But that's just a matter of if he comes back to the league, because I think he's got to, fix what's going up in here, up in his head. He's a pretty big head case. So the last football question of the day. There were 3 teams that went 8-8 last year and did not make the playoffs. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Dallas Cowboys. So, Jake, out of these 3 teams, which team do you think has the best chance to make it to the Super Bowl?
All right. I think it's my Pittsburgh Steelers. I love my Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I'm telling you right now, we have possibly the best defense in the league. I mean, you could argue it's the Bills, you could argue it's the Ravens, but my Pittsburgh Steelers are right up there. And what I've been saying about the Baltimore Ravens all this year, everybody's going to be playing them. Even Harbaugh said this. Everybody's going to be playing them as if it's their biggest game of the season. That's hard. That's really hard to deal with night in and night out. Now teams know how to play Lamar. They know how to beat the Ravens. They saw what the Titans did to them. How is that going to affect their team? How is it going to affect their roster? Earl Thomas is a year older. He looked washed up in that Titans game. I think he's a little bit overrated. And I think that defense is a little bit overrated as well. I think that Calais Campbell trade was a little overrated. I don't think he's as good as people are saying he was. I don't think that's as big of a trade as people are saying it was. So
really?
I'm not sold.
You went on here quoting that it was a huge trade for them, and that's one of the reasons you think they're going to be one of the best teams.
I know.
I originally
I've had
said
to course correct. I've had to course correct.
I said the Steelers were winning the division. I've been all aboard that train. I said they're winning that division this year, and you disagreed with me. You said it was going to be the Ravens, and you said that Calais Campbell move was actually one of the reasons why the Steelers weren't going to win the division, and the Ravens were.
And I know I'm going to be debating my old self here, but I was foolish back then. Things have just changed, and I think honestly that the Pittsburgh Steelers with that defense, which is, in my opinion, it's young, it's aggressive, it's going to get at the quarterback. They were one of the few teams who played Lamar really well last year. In that game, I think it was like week 4, Lamar threw like 2 or 3 picks. We were right in the game with Mason Rudolph at quarterback in the second half. We were right in that game with them, and they won 14 games that year. So seeing that was a huge good sign from my Steelers. And you throw in, and honestly, you can never count this guy out. Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's a big-time player. He's one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the league. He always is there in the fourth quarter. And you put him – Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges led us to 8 wins last year. Imagine what Ben's going to do. Now you have a healthy Juju. Now you have a healthy Vance McDonald. You got Eric Ebron. You got, who I think is going to be a stud, Chase Claypool. We got him out of the second round. He's 6'5". He's going to terrorize that Baltimore defense for years to come. I love Chase Claypool. I think he's going to be special. I know I'm one of the only few who's really high on him. He's got to get some speed, and he's got to get a little bit better at his route running. That's where he struggled with Notre Dame. If he had those two things, he would have been in the CD Lamb conversation in that draft. You add him into the mix, and the Steelers have that foundation. This season's going to be unlike any other, right? So I think the Steelers are one of those teams who are coming into this offseason. They know what they're going to do. They've had this roster. They've had Big Ben. They're going to come in. They're going to shock everybody this season. I think the Steelers are going to take this division, and I think of these three teams you just listed, there's really only one team in the AFC that I think the Steelers can't beat, and that's probably the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's the only team that you can say the Steelers clearly cannot beat. So, whereas with the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Bucs, my problem with the Bucs is this. I love Tom Brady this season. I think he's going to have a big year. But they are a completely different team, and they haven't had the whole offseason to get ready. They're not going to be as good this year. I think it's going to take a year for TB and Tampa Bay to play at their best. I think they're going to take a year to get to Super Bowl contention because Tom Brady has had, a few weeks here, conversations that they would have had in April they're having now, which is not good. You don't want that. The Steelers already knew what they've been doing, the whole offseason because Ben's been in this offense. Brady's learning a whole new offense right now. So is Rob Gronkowski. So is LaShawn McCoy. This is a completely different team, and now they're being thrown into the fire against the clock. And I don't think this is the year. I don't think this is the year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're a year away. And the Dallas Cowboys, I just think the Dallas Cowboys have a lot of competition in the NFC, and I think that you can't trust Dak Prescott yet. Dak Prescott hasn't won in the playoffs. He hasn't showed me that he can do it. Big Ben has. Big Ben has won a lot. And, so is Tom Brady. But my thing with the Buccaneers was just that it's not Tom Brady's fault. I just think that there's not enough time for them to get it this season. But with the Dallas Cowboys, I just think you can't trust Dak Prescott. That defense is not good. Their defense is not good. They're not going to be stopping a lot of teams. Offense is one of the best in the league by far. But I don't think the Cowboys are ready yet. And then there's a lot of stuff going on with Dak. I don't know how happy he is after all this stuff went down with his contract. There's a lot of problems in Big D. So I don't think Dallas does it this year. I still think that they win that division over the Eagles, but I think if we had to pick one of those three teams to win the Super Bowl out of those three choices, for me it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It looks like we've lost Joey here. So, Justin, which team do you think has the best chance to win the Super Bowl?
I'm going with the Steelers as well. I mean, I've been on board with that since basically the whole offseason now because I think Lamar's kind of cursed right now. I don't think he's able to kind of contend. I think he's good, but he's not elite yet. He's a good quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback that can win you big games. So until he proves that, I don't think the Ravens are true contenders in that division or Super Bowl contenders. I think they're good, but they're not truly elite. You get teams like the Saints in the NFC South with the Buccaneers. I think they're a legit team and a legit contender. I think they win that division easily. So I think that hurts the Bucs. And with the Dallas Cowboys, I think the Eagles are legit contenders. They have basically their whole roster back with just Darius Slay and Jalen Reagor, their first-round pick. That's really the only difference they have, and they're all healthy now. So I really like them out of the NFC East. So I really like that. I disagree though with the fact that what you said. I disagree with. I think the Steelers are certainly contenders. I don't know. You made a point about I think it was the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are still going to be good though. I think they make the playoffs.
I think so too. I think they're a playoff team this year, and I think next year in Tom Brady's second year they'll be a lot better because I'm assuming next year is going to be normal, which it should be. And, of course, they'll have a year under the offense. I just think right now, I think the Buccaneers are going to start off slow this year and fall a little bit behind and then sort of catch on towards the end. That's just how I feel about them, and I think they're a wild card team this year.
See, I agree with you. I mean, these teams, the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, new head coaches, new systems that they're going to run.
Exactly.
Steelers have had their coach and most of their roster back. You're just adding the quarterback, really. So that I think that gives them an advantage there. You talked about Chase Claypool. He's solid, but he's nothing special. He's not like this elite guy. He's more just a jump ball guy in the red zone. And he has big potential, yes, but that doesn't mean he's going to be good right now. He's going to be good red zone target and a good deep ball if you're throwing like a Hail Mary or something. But other than that, I don't think you see him much. I still think you see more Deontay Johnson, James Washington, those type of guys with Juju out there more than Chase Claypool to start, especially because he's a rookie and he's coming off this new system there. And The Dallas Cowboys, you're right about Dak. But the Buccaneers have one of the easiest schedules in football, actually, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have, I believe it's the second toughest behind the Ravens. The Ravens have the toughest schedule, and then the Steelers have the second toughest. So I think that's a disadvantage to the Steelers. But if I'm pick one of those teams, I'm agreeing with you. I pick the Steelers.
Yep.
Is Joey back here?
You with us, Joe?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All those teams will definitely be something to watch. I mean, you got to look at the Cowboys roster, but it all depends on the head coaching over there. But before we end the show, just want to talk about the MLB a little quickly. So the AL West, the Oakland A's are currently winning division at 10-4, and the Houston Astros are struggling right now at 6-7. And I was completely wrong about that. See, I thought they were talented and all, and I thought they could succeed without cheating, but obviously I was wrong. Their big three of Altuve and Springer and Bregman, they've been bums. They've been struggling, and the A's look really good now. So, Justin, do you think the A's are World Series contenders?
I do believe they're World Series contenders. They've actually played really well so far, and their best pitcher, Sean Manaea, he has actually been struggling a lot to start this year. So they've been doing it with, I believe it's like Frankie Montas, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I know who he is. I just don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. He's been lights out. They have a couple other guys that have been lights out. They get this kid, AJ Pook, I believe that's how you pronounce it. He's going to be coming up off the IL, so he's going to be good. They have the pitching. They've added the pitching, so I think that helps them because their biggest kind of issue was pitching. Their hitting's been great, and it still is. It's been carrying them a lot to start this year. So I think they're legit. They've been one of my sleeper teams. I really like them. I think that it's kind of theirs to lose because the Astros are terrible. Like they are so bad. Altuve's been bad. Bregman's been bad. Springer's been bad. That all of them have been terrible. They're really relying on the trash cans, it seems. So they've been just bad. And you look at the rest. The Texas Rangers lost Corey Kluber for most of the season now, so they're going to be out of it. The Angels are good, though. They just need another pitcher. If they could trade for a pitcher,
I agree.
Keep Ohtani. See, he got hurt again, so I don't know how much he's going to be pitching. But they got Dylan Bundy. Dylan Bundy has pitched very well for him. So
Bundy is
shocking. Get him to be if they get him to be their ace, and they have Julio Teheran, a couple other. They just need more pitching to actually contend. They don't have the pitching the Athletics do, and that's why they're not like real threats in that division yet. So I think the A's kind of walk away with the division title pretty easily this season.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm high on the A's. They're a really good all-around team. I mean, last year we saw them reel off. Towards the end of the year, they looked like the best team in that division. The last 30, 40 games of the regular season, and I think they're definitely contenders. I think we brought up the Rockies in this discussion because these are two teams that have kind of shockingly – well, I don't know about the A's starting off shockingly hot is too much of a surprise. I really like that team.
Yeah, I was very high on them before the year.
I think a lot of people were, but I think the Rockies have shocked a lot of people this season so far because I think they're like 10-3 or 11-3 or something like that.
They're 10-3.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're winning the division over the Dodgers, so I don't think that'll last forever, but I think they could be a playoff team. But if we were going to take these two teams and pick which one's a contender, I'm with you on the A's. I just think the A's have a really good bullpen. They got Jake Diekman, who I really like a lot. He's a good, solid guy there in the end. I like Montas. I like Puck. I like Chris Bassett in that rotation. That's just it's a solid team. Mike Fears too. I think Mike Fears is still in that rotation. He's their fourth or fifth guy. He's always solid. He was with the Astros during those cheating years. And he had some
he actually spoke out on it.
He did, yeah. This is funny. I think the A's have great hitting. They got Marcus Semien, a couple of these guys.
Matt Chapman and Matt Olson.
Matt Chapman, Matt Olson too. That's a good lineup there. They're a well-rounded team. The thing with the only problem that you have with the A's is, they obviously their star pitcher Sean Manaea is not really a true number one. They don't really have a guy in the postseason.
He's coming off Tommy John too, so
yeah, he's coming off Tommy John. They have a bunch of guys in their rotation who are solid, like I was saying, like Bassett, like Manaea, Mike Fears, Puck soon. So it's going to be interesting to see what this team can do. But I do think that they do need a guy. Like all the teams that win the World Series usually have a guy. Look at what the Yankees have this year. They got Garrett Cole. Last year was the Nationals with Strasburg and with Scherzer, guys that just can dominate, top 10 pitchers in the league. That's why we're talking about sleeper teams here. I really like the Cincinnati Reds because they got the best 3-pitcher trio in baseball right now. They got Bauer, they got Gray, and they got Luis Castillo, the best 3-man rotation you could have.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to matter. They're 6-8 right now, and
those
3 pitchers have been playing lights out. So I don't really think the Reds are too much of a threat because of that.
I think it's shocking that they're 6-8. I think if they can get into the postseason, they can make some serious noise with those guys starting. So if we're talking about just strictly sleepers here, they would be my pick. But I like the A's this year. I think the A's could make the World Series. In my opinion, I think that ALCS is going to be Yankees and Twins just because I love the Twins this year. I think the Twins, just like the A's, need a little bit more pitching-wise, but batting-wise, the Twins might have the best batting lineup in the league. So they're going to be up there. The Yankees have better pitching, though. So, as always, I've been saying my World Series pick is Yankees-Dodgers, but we'll see how things have changed. This 60-game season is – some weird stuff is happening so far. I mean, the Cubs have been red hot. Out of nowhere, the Rockies are playing well. Out of nowhere, I shouldn't say out of nowhere. You can keep saying out of nowhere with the A's, but I think the A's are a team that we always expected to be pretty good this season. So, but yeah, there's been some weird stuff happening. Yeah. For Christ's sake, the Marlins are playing really well, and they have like everybody out.
Yeah, they're 7-1.
Yeah, they're like 7-1. So it's been a weird season so far. I mean, the Cardinals are probably going to play like 45 games. It's going to be so weird.
Screwed.
But yeah, there's a lot.
The Padres have played well though too.
The Padres, I like the Padres.
Tatis Jr. looks like the best shortstop in baseball right now. Chris Paddock's turned out to be an ace. They got some other pitchers like Lamette's pitching well, and they got other players like Will Myers, Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado. That's a sleeper team too out there. I think the Rockies will fall off. I don't think this pitching they've started out with will last. Like Senzatella and some of these other guys are just pitching lights out right now. I don't think that lasts. I think the Padres end up coming second in the NL West behind the Dodgers.
I think so too. I think the Rockies kind of had their years about 2 years ago when Arenado was really good, and they also had Blackman, and they also had I'm forgetting his name now. Another discussion for another day. But they had 2 guys who were in the MVP contention with Blackman and Arenado at their best, and I think they could have had their chance 2 years ago. And so, I think the Rockies are a little bit just sort of pretenders right now. But I don't think that the A's are pretenders. I think the A's are contenders.
The A's have started out 10-4 5 times, and every time they've started out 10-4, they've made the playoffs. So that's
they're going to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, because now that 2 teams get in, they'll easily at least finish. At worst, they'd finish second in that division.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even you look at the A's, I definitely agree with you guys. I think they could definitely win the AL West this year. Astros have been pretty bad, but making the World Series is going to be a little tough because they got to come in. They got to play teams like the Twins and the Yankees, who have just been crushing it this whole year. And looking at the NL, I mean, the Rockies are 10-3, but I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on to that because, the Dodgers are just the Dodgers. They'll make a playoff run every year. It's just a matter if they can go all the way. But, the Rockies have been pretty impressive this year. I mean, Charlie Blackman's been tearing it up. I mean, I'm a fantasy owner of him. He's batting over 400. He's been going off this year. So, the NL has been really interesting this year. The Cubs and the Marlins, like you guys said. So, the 60-game MLB season's been very interesting. But that's going to conclude the episode for today. Jake and Justin, you guys had some great debates. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Lost a little battery in my computer. That was my fault. But good episode today. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Boiled Up Podcast, and the same to our social media on Instagram at Boiled Up Podcast, as we record weekly, especially with all sports back now, which is great. But thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.